Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for braving the weather today and coming on out to Pandora's Box Poetry Showcase here at our new home, Deep Vellum Books. And what better way to say hello to 2017. Last month, thanks to Courtney Marie and Sebastian Paramo, I will always remember being with these three poets, our featured artists this afternoon, going around Deep Vellum and weather not unlike this, and letting 2016 know what we thought about things. So I've got a poem here that I'm going to share with you to introduce that I think can express much better than I have the words to how I feel about these three poets that we're going to be lucky enough to hear this afternoon. And this poem is Blessed Be the Truth Tellers by Martina Spada. In the projects of Brooklyn, everyone lied. My mother used to say, if someone starts a fight, just walk away. Then somebody would smack the back of my head and dance around me in a circle laughing. When I was 12, pus bubbled up on my tonsils and everyone said, after the operation, you can have all the ice cream you want. I bragged about the deal. No longer would I chase the ice cream truck down the street, panting at the bells to catch Johnny, the ice cream man, who allegedly sold heroin the color of vanilla from the same window. Then Jack, the truth teller, visited the projects. Jack, who herded real camels and sheep through the snow of East Harlem every Three Kings Day. Jack, who wrote sonnets of the jail cell and the racetrack and the boxing ring. Jack, who crossed his arms in a hunger strike until the mayor hired more Puerto Ricans. And Jack said, you gonna get your tonsils out? Ay, bendito, that's gonna hurt. I was authorized, then woke up on the ward, heaving black water onto white sheets. A man poking through his hospital gown leaned over me and sneered, you think you got it tough? Look at this. And showed me the cauliflower tumor behind his ear. I heaved up black water again. The ice cream burned. Vanilla was a snowball spiked with bits of glass. My throat was red as a tunnel on fire after the head-on collision of two gasoline trucks. This is how I learned to trust the poets and shepherds of East Harlem. Blessed be the truth tellers, for they shall have all the ice cream they want. Martina Spada. Today, these poets, they'll be bringing ice cream for our souls. They will be the blessed truth tellers. First up, Andrew McFadyen-Ketchum is an award-winning freelance editor, writing coach, and lecturer of creative writing in English at the University of Colorado. He is also acquisitions editor for Upper Rubber Boot Books, founder and editor-in-chief of poemoftheweek.org, founder and editor of the Floodgate Poetry Series, and editor of two great anthologies. His first book of poems, Ghost Gear, was a finalist for the Miller Williams Prize, the Colorado Book Award, and an INDIEFAB. IndieFab. Of course it is. His second manuscript, and I don't hold it against him because he's so darn tall, Visiting Hours, was a finalist for the National Poetry Series. Here he is, the one, the only, Deep Vellum. Welcome, Andrew McFadyen-Ketchum.
It's great meeting to be like. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's not a school; it's a beer table. Thanks for coming out. This is a real pleasure. Thanks to Caitlin and Ginny, of course, for sharing this space with me, and really more like donating this space to me that I get to borrow. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I live in Boulder, Colorado. And we read in Austin last night, and I was joking that the one person that I was supposed to bring to the reading, like the one of you, right, was a student from back in the day, and of course he didn't come. But today, I have my family member here. Thank you for coming. Good to see you. So thanks to all of you for allowing me to read to you. I'm going to read 5 poems. and it's going to be a little interactive. I'm going to start with my favorite poem to read from the book, and then after that I'm going to say you have the option of a poem about this or about that, and what you need to do when I say like about skinny dipping, there's one of those, be like, whoa, and we'll like figure out like, you know, who's more excited about what poem. So it's like a choose your own adventure. Okay. This first poem's 3 pages. It's in 2 tercets and then what has been much debated. But does anybody have a term for a single line stanza? Yeah.
A line.
See?
Yeah.
A line. Well, that would, okay. Jake out of New York called it a stitch because it sort of stitched the poem together. Terry Hummer calls it a monoset, which is very Terry Hummer. So it's a tercet, monoset, stitch, whatever. Goes for 3 pages. All right. This is called The Word Damn and the Word God. Who knows what strung those 2 words together on my tongue the summer Chris moved in across the alley? All those long June hours we tiptoed the rusted out railroad, begging for the vibration of approaching freight or playing Yahtzee, camped out in the dome tent pitched in his backyard, searching in the numbers for any sign of first light. But my money's on the afternoon I stepped into a mining bee's hive, mid-stride catching a touchdown spiral with time running out, their home woven among the roots of Chris's peach tree. For weeks thereafter, St. Anne's across the street called, "Repent, repent." I, the kid who stormed the neighborhood in escape of bees, crying countless curses, every inch of my body scorched, a hymnal of goddams tucked between bicep and bird chest. Chris's father poured 2 gallons of gasoline on that construct of whispers, and my father let me watch him drop a lit match into the earth from our high kitchen window. That night, Chris gave me a mason jar of dead miners curled up like wolf spiders swept out from under the couch, and all night I dreamt of the mason's magic. Bees rising on invisible spindles in the grass in that pause between time and conflagration. But my mother decided that it was Chris, who through the darkness of a few nights later, she heard screaming God dams with each strike of the father's leather across the son's back. I cried when my father told me I no longer could play with Chris, and he wept when I said that Chris is all I have. Chris, who caught a carp a day later, his prize strung up by an orange-thick tree branch through its breathers. Chris, who liked to strum the testicles of his pit bull Rex, mean as hell, kept chained to a sycamore by the alley between our yards, but when Chris was around, returned into the sweetest of things. Chris, who I thought of this morning as fog lifted to reveal 3 acres of wheatgrass frosted silver reaching for the pole star like a bed of nails, and I was flung back to the day I stumbled from Chris's basement with a 2x4 rust nailed to my heel, Chris unhooking Rex's chain, the panic bitter in my mouth, my eyes squeezed shut, then the warm slap of Rex's tongue from foot to nail, from nail to foot, Chris and I bearing witness to the healing power of a dog's saliva as he rubbed Rex's balls, and Rex groaned as blood eased from my skin. He and his father moved late that fall, chasing factories deep south, and now Chris lives in that place where everything seems true. Some say his father took to Evan Williams. Some say Chris simply became what he already was. And I wish I could say I've run into him in line at the DMV or at some bar I've come to for the dancing, and there's Chris, stitched into fishnets, neon strobes like moons in his vinyl knee-highs, eyeshadow thick as clay and tire tread. Wish I could say we've laughed over beers and told old stories, slapped one another on the back and argued over the tab. But Chris's father didn't bother to clean the boning knife sequined from yet another Sunday at Acapulco Lake. 3 largemouth reserved on their bed of ice, Rex outside howling. And now I wonder if this explains that summer of goddamn's Chris Yao down all those dreary railroad miles, how he always knew at the splits which curves turned toward the switchyard and which paved the path to Tennessee's Jerusalem. So glory be to the goddams, he cried, all those hours it takes a knife to the gut to kill a man. Goddams to the hours it must have taken Chris to die. Goddams to the carp we never caught, to the knife destined for Chris's gut. Goddams to all dogs too weak to loose their chains. Goddams to all the stories we do not tell, to all fathers angry with their sons. Goddamn. If I could, I'd take Chris in my arms. I'd get down with the grit and linoleum and patch that rift of skin with my tongue. I'd hold the boy drunk between two eyes. I'd freeze ourselves and wait for the sculptor who pulls greatness out of stone. Our two bodies draped one into the other. The word damn and the word God. Thank you for the applause. It's needed and it lets me drink a little bit of beer. Usually I demand applause, but that time I just got it. Okay, so let's see here. Do we want a poem about going to the movies as a kid in the ghetto and seeing Sharon Stone's Hoo Ha? You remember that movie? Do you want a poem about stealing my mother's Toyota Corolla wagon, Maroon, at the age of 13 or whatever it was, and driving real fast around Nashville? Or do we want a poem about learning that a comet was going to strike the Earth and running away from it? Okay, so, do we want... Hoo-ha! All right, that's the perfect... Hoo-ha! Give me hoo-has.
Yeah!
Hoo-ha! Okay, all right, not bad. Stealing my mother's Corolla and driving around town. Give me
Cars.
Okay. Running away from a comet.
Yeah!
Okay, we're going to go with hoo-ha. Okay. This is the lives of boys. This poem, actually, it's kind of cool. Saying my own poem is cool. That's kind of cool because what I just said. The last line is a stitch, mono stitch, whatever you can call it. It's kind of interesting. And then the stanzas, they move around on the page. You know, they're not just left, you know, it moves around. We're a bunch of poets in here. Why do we do that? I have no idea. Okay. This is the lives of boys. Your lives have no end, we were told, because they have not yet started. Our names the blank expanse between birth dates and extinctions that papered our classroom walls. Chris Clausen, who wrapped his hands in gauze for weeks after closing them around the bright red nose of a bottle rocket. Or Sam Smith, who snuck warm off-white cans of Olympia beer from his father's stash, answering anyone who called him a drunkard with his fists. And Satyr Grimes and Edward and Tim, his brothers, who lit a spare Goodyear on fire behind the closed doors of the Shell service station, lucky to return from St. Thomas a few weeks later, ears gnarled to dogs' chew toys, strange interruptions in their speech. But it was I who first vaulted the sagged chain link that barred the way onto Old White Bridge Road, ignoring the signs of no trespassing, tired of leaping stone to stone across Richland Creek. Picking our way between unpatched cracks in the macadam, it no longer mattered what movies spun on their reels at the Lion's Head, or what candies we'd select from the concession stand's pour box of light. Only the trail we blazed below the thrum of traffic east and west in the shadow of the new bridge. The tang of vomit and whiskey drifting up with the snap of rapids from the creek below, where we skipped rocks across the backs of bluegill and called out in response to the rusty incantations of grackles. It was only a matter of time until Chris ventured out onto the 2x4 that bridged the gap in the eastbound lane, where one by one we tested ourselves, board warping back and forth, the world seemingly gone quiet as we spread our arms for balance. Old white bridge, yet another threshold our mothers bade us do not cross, though our fathers knew we would anyway. And it was Sam who was first to break. Concerned, he claimed our flirtations with chance would make us late for the film. So we punched Sam hard in the shoulder for flinching the entire 2-mile trek to the theater, and all throughout the movie, drinking noisily from our sodas and ignoring the turned heads of shushes, until Sharon Stone uncrossed her legs and silenced us all. Not a one of us knew what we'd witnessed. On our way there, or somewhere below that projector's ray of flickering flames. At any moment, old white bridge could have flung us into a darkness where no one would make out our row of open-mouthed faces. Nothing quite like the heat that simmers up around the lives of boys, the red world extant behind the eager, unblinking eye. I don't think I realized that that's a funny poem until... All right, thank you. All right, let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna read a short poem. I need to prove I can do that. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm sort of debating. I'm gonna read the first poem from the book. Jeannie and I sort of did these little addendum introductions last night at Melbourne Books in Boston, where we talked a little bit about how poems are gifts to the world, and these are our gifts to you that you have to pay for. And we read a poem of each other's from our books, and she read this one. And one of the things I think is cool about this poem is it's the first poem in the book. It's the last poem that I wrote for the book. And I was in my MFA program and was putting this book together and sort of trying to figure out how do you start a book? Which is a question you never really hear. You hear, how do you put a book together? But how do you start a book? Like in fiction, that first sentence better blow your mind, right? So I was like, well, the first poem better blow people's minds. So prepare to have your mind blown. I'm hoping it worked. This is called Singing. What do I know of God, but that each winter I thank God for it. No spider web snagged in the blue stem, no horseflies at rest in blossoming cones of henbit, no slug trails penned to the cooled hoods of cars. We are creatures all, stillborn to the language of split pine rails standing in their pickets, ice glazed to bone in every rut, the stealth tracks of jays, a sleepless ideography in the snow. But we are not entirely alone between the mountain ranges. In these hours condemned to darkness, before the sun gyres open the face of February and the red flare of Mars grows dim, just outside my door, the bur oak is wintered, full of grackles. Hundreds of coin-eyed scuttles ornamenting its branches. Here, my breath plumes gray. In the distance, brush catches fire. The wind, if you watch, is calligraphy. The stars in winter, a weightlessness. The grackles, their doors, rasping their flight plans limb to limb. The grackles are doors, some limbed with light, others black. Rising, my arms have long been open. Stepping across these thresholds, I step across these thresholds. Singing, I sing. Okay, one more interactive poem. Thank you. Oh, okay, I forgot about this one. Ooh, there's a bunch in here that would be fun to read. Okay, so then there's the running away from a comet that never struck, but we thought it was going to. There's stealing my mom's Corolla maroon, 2 in the morning or whatever that was. Then there's driving her car off of a cliff because it was so old and we just want to get rid of it. And then there's skinny dipping in high school in my friend's pool. So, all right, skinny dipping?
Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
The sexy song.
Okay. Driving the car, stealing the car and driving it around town like a maniac. No one wants to hear any of these. Let's see here. Running away from the comments? Okay, comments. Fine. That's okay. Okay, this is called The Year Hayakatuka Was Said. Might be the only poem in here with an epigraph, actually. Interesting, never thought about that. The comet Hayakatuka, formerly designated C/1996 B2, these scientists, they really know how to name interstellar objects, was discovered on January 31, 1996, dubbed the Great Comet of 1996. Its passage near the Earth was one of the closest cometary approaches in recorded history. The year Hayakatuka was said to strike the Earth, I was in love with Lauren Orr. The girl I watched cross court at the homecoming game, her school, our rival, and who I believed watched me, despite the close contest, a foul, a free throw, a buzzer beater. Lauren, a dancer, with short, even blonde hair, and who wore that night a blue floral print blouse I still like to imagine she slept in, thinking of me as the delicately stenciled violets branched up from her sleep, their heart-shaped foliage spreading wild, Venus unfolding from the crests of curtains like waves with the wind through the windows of her small white bedroom in her small white house with its sloped green roof and cool yellow glow. I first heard of Hayakatuka a week later, as I walked the wide hallways between German and trigonometry, mouthing the words, Ich liebe dich, I love you, Ich liebe dich, in love with a girl for the first time, and suddenly vision of that halo-winged coma of white-hot gas, the core, a pupil widening on the horizon, that angry eye of iridium and ice streaking in on its fuzzed spectrum of light, having swung by for so long on its innocent and lonely elliptical through the solar system. I wanted to run, to make something of that orbit I wore in the brick red track of recycled tractor trailer tires, 50 seconds per loop, 4 1/4 minutes per mile, track meet after track meet, my name pressed in thin columns of print on the last of the sports pages on Sundays. Her school named after the man who wrote Letter from Birmingham Jail, 3 miles uphill past barrel fires and men circled around them, the bits of glass I picked from the soles of my Nikes, turning my fingers red before I turned back in a sprint downhill, calves saddled to my legs and I riding them wherever they would take me. Since I've not known such heat, have not been pressed beneath such extinguishing fire, landlocked by hall monitors, college application pending, conjugating German modals, ich liebe, du liebst, der sie es liebt in one mind, and in the other mind, the mountain I often dreamed of, a perfect green isosceles, blue veins of rivulets swiveling down to the foothills, wood smoke and whisk from the stovepipes from a few cottages, as above it all, Hayakatuka draws a bead, its bright white iris widened to the polished skull of a ghost hair returned for blood. Lauren and I atop that apogee as the seas boil over and the earth's core retracts, great steamed jetties blasting solarward from the evaporated poles, our bodies spiraling upward to the heavens, light of ourselves, flash, 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 vaporized, great plumes of smoke rising, the American elms that line my street bursting into bright red asters, the wobbly machinery of the moon dropping toward the bleary square of light that shone from the basement window, its splash glow articulating the laces of our sneakers as we listened to the sound of her father between notes, the piano, all that sound, the chords drifting upward and out into nowhere. All right. to totally do something different. I almost always end on the title poem, which I love to do, but you know, some dude went to an airport and killed some people. Yet again, I went to Virginia Tech. I wasn't there when the massacre happened there, but the guy who did it was an English major, and I was an English major, obviously. So every single person involved in this horrific shooting was like my professor, one of my good friends. And I'm just getting a little tired of it. So this is the second poem of the book. It's called Tonight. It's about Virginia Tech, though you wouldn't know that. It just has a date on it, which is the date of the massacre. So if you want to look that up when you're reading the book, you go, oh. Otherwise, I don't know if you know what it's about. This is Tonight. Thank you again for coming. I really do appreciate it. This is $15, cash or credit. And if you buy a copy, you get a button. And it's kind of cool because I had this cover commissioned for the book. I paid an artist to actually make it. She read the book and then made this cover. And if you read the book, you'll go, wow, it's perfect. So thanks again. I'm looking forward to hearing Caitlin and Jenny read for us here in a moment. This is Tonight. Tonight, the sun gutters down to its wick as daylight strains and refracts and skirls across the lake's wide water. Heavy rollers of rain heave against headland and tree line. Lightning falls in its slow white script to farmland and watershed. Still, I know so little of the rain that plays this lake like a snare. Time run thin through the sky's turnstiles, all the grief and shrift I cannot hold, but do, moving in from the north. What else can I say of these ball-peen hammers of distant thunderheads? What else can I say of this lake most deep, where the mud newt sups and the black leech dreams of swimmers and blood? If only I could drop into sediment and murk, so much lost to the heart's heave through amnion and the liquid wake and sleep, so much forgotten of the ocean's collapse and the skull caps crowning the boom, the crux, the good steel bolt slid home in the flame. Here, in these first few minutes of dusk, I say sunset, you take too much. Sun having preened its glossy spoke, last light departed into the west. Here, tonight, I say land, you leave us too soon. Sky bottomed out, the lake clicked shut. Thank you, everyone.